Hello, this is Awaken and Ascend with Jennifer Regular. That's me. And I cannot wait to tell you about our guest today. Laurie Parente is a fourth generation intuitive who has always been connected to the angels and the spirits. And she's here to support those who are ready to release old patterns, heal those generational wounds, and reconnect with their soul essence. So you can see why I invited her to be on the show. Sometimes you might feel like you've lost your connection with spirit, with soul, and with your loved ones, whether they're still living or they've transitioned. And Laurie is going to share today how we continue these relationships with our loved ones who have died in new and beautiful ways. And this is available for all of us. So it's no coincidence that you're tuning in today. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Laurie, for coming onto the show. Welcome.
You are so welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I'm just very honored to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, it's interesting. I remember from my childhood, I've shared a couple of times on the show that by the time I was 21, there were 17 deaths in my friends and family circle, and it just continued on and on from there. I'm like more than twice that age now. And of course, there's been many more, but it's very much been a part of my life. And I really hear you and understand you when you say that these relationships continue after you've left on. And it's even interesting to hear what people talk about of those who left on, what kind of legacy that they actually left, that quality connection, family recipe, or whatever it may be that has been brought on. And I remember the very first death was when I was 6 years old, and it was my nephew that had died. And my mom explained the death to me because, that was my first one and I was still a child, that he was your guardian angel now. And I know that, guardian angel is actually something different, but I believed it at the time and that's the way it was. And then that opened me up to the whole angelic realm as well, just being connected with the angels and our guardians and our allies. And there's so much help and support that we have from the other side. And I think it's really important to remember that, especially now when things feel so chaotic. And so I'm really interesting what lit your path, Laurie, on this journey.
So very young, I was very sick. I spent the first 2 years of my life in the hospital.
Mm.
And it was something today that people would just go, what? But in the late 1960s, no one knew what celiac disease was.
Mm.
And so it took them a long time. Actually, my mom was the one who figured it out and took the information to the doctor. But that 2 years, it was a time when parents didn't stay with their kids. So my angels were my playmates. They were my comfort. They were the ones who took care of me in the middle of the night when the nurse unknowingly gave me wheat pablum and it
Oh,
made me sicker. They just didn't know. So my angels were really, really with me right from the beginning. And I really knew that I didn't need anything outside of myself as long as I had this connection.
mm.
It doesn't mean that I didn't fight against it as a teenager and not want to be that weirdo, that wacko, that woo woo, because in the 80s, nobody was talking about it like they are today. But it did give me that solid foundation of I'm always connected. I have a whole team in spirit. I can always connect in for guidance and support and healing. Um, and so that's kind of how things worked out for me, and they've always been with me.
Wow. And how do you work with them? You mentioned a little bit personally, providing that comfort and safety and direction and guidance when, you don't need that validation from the outside because you have such a strong spiritual connection. How do you work with that in the service that you provide for humanity?
So for myself, if I can just say, I have a place that I go within that I always, from one time I was little, I called Soul Sanctuary. And it
Mm.
was the place that I would go to that had many facets. I mean, Jesus taught us all you need is within. You have everything you need. Um, and of course, before everything got corrupted by religion, but we can still take his basic tenets that so I go there very regularly. And so I started to teach other people how to create their own soul sanctuary, what it means for them to go within, and the different components that live in their soul sanctuary. And it just started to become this very individualized process where people were learning to tune in and learning what guidance meant for them and who guided them and how to ask for support and how to, kind of tune into that inner mystery school and be led in the
Mm.
things that you're trying to create. So that's kind of how it all started. And even before that, like bringing messages through from their loved ones would come through as a medium as well. And then I just thought people need to know how to do this themselves.
Huh. Mm-hmm.
So perhaps they have a place in their sanctuary where they meet with their loved ones, or they have a place where they meet with their angels, or they have a place where they go to learn, or there's the place where they go to heal. And everything that you need is within, and you have it set up, and your brain is on board on how it works.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that you're creating the soul sanctuary within for yourself and teaching others how to do that so they can feel self-empowered and work on the self-healing and self-facilitate their journey in the way that it's meant to connect rather than people coming out of fear or desperation and wanting answers and kind of giving their power away.
Right.
I also like the soul sanctuary because we mentioned that you're a fourth generation intuitive. So it sounds like you've had that kind of exposure within the family and that general acceptance and lived experience in that. And there's a lot that are gifted in this way as well, but don't have that same kind of support or understand where it might fit in their lineage. So having that soul sanctuary feels like a safe place for them to truly be themselves and who they are. I
Yeah.
also see how this can apply to leadership because, sorry, Lori. I don't know where Sherry came from.
Okay.
Lori, because what you shared, I think that's where I got mixed up. In with leadership, there's the authority. You're becoming the go-to person, right? And being able to always have the answers for people or have the authority. And it's hard to be strong and vulnerable at the same time unless you're given permission to be and understand that you don't have to live in this duality. When you're feeling a little vulnerable or unsafe or disconnected and be able to go into that inner guidance and have people rely on their inner guidance rather than having the pressure to always perform and to always be on and to let go and know that everyone has their path and their journey and we're not fully responsible for that. It took me a while to learn that because I know that in a lot of environments and relationships, I was the stabilizer, right? And so it was scary for me to step out of that, fearing that things would fall apart, and so there was that tendency to overcarry, to overfunction, to be all for all that people need, and really having that self neglect come in, that self abandonment that I had to work through on my own. But who I did feel safe with, like you, was the angels, right? And having those angel prayers, calling on the angels for support because it was safe. It saved face in the external world because it wasn't asking anybody on the outside until much later.
Right.
It was nice to be able to call on the angels for that kind of support. But we're talking now about how we connect with the loved ones that have passed on. And
Mhm.
that's something that a lot of people want, but also fear at the same time, right? Isn't that interesting? What do you think that's about? Why do we fear what we want so much, that connection?
I think it has to do with the way that we deal with grief
Mm,
in our society.
mhm,
How we're given 3 days off of work and then back you go, and
mhm,
leave it at home. Don't bring it to the office, um, and it becomes this thing where the grief that we feel in wanting things to be different and wanting them still to be here actually becomes a bit of a block to connection.
mm, mhm,
So when we can get to the point where if we can trust that they've it's like we're in school and they graduated. Who wants to stay in school all the time, right? And one day we will graduate as well.
mm,
And we all die. But there's this fear that's been put into our society of we don't know what happens at death, so we must avoid it at all times and not talk about it. And it's actually really, really sad that we don't talk about it because it is something we're all going to transition through. So I always say to people, if you can just allow that grief to soften just a little bit
mm,
by tuning into where they are now, how they are in bliss, how they are in joy, how they're happy, how they're in the light, and you can feel that expansion as I say those words, then it's easier to connect
Ah,
because you're not in the fear and you're not in the I wish they were here. You're tuning into the joy and the
mm,
bliss and the light. And then that connection becomes a lot more capable. You're more capable of it. And we are meant to continue our relationships. They change. Absolutely, they change because we're now in different places. And I do have the example of, when my mom passed, we were very close, so we connected right away, and she just became this big shining light, and she's always with me. But when my dad passed, we had been estranged for nearly 30 years, and there was a lot of issues. And when he passed, he would start to come through, and I'd be like, nope, not ready for you. I've still got some work to do. And I realized I needed to do the work on forgiveness. I needed to do the work on my part in the relationship before we could connect. He's over there doing his work. I need to do my work. And about 3 months after he passed, he came through, and I said, okay, we can talk now. I feel more ready. And he's become the most magical guide for me. He's become just this, he comes in with laughter, he comes in with magic, almost like with Merlin energy every
ah,
time he comes in.
wow.
And so it shows you that no matter what your relationship was, if you were super close or you were estranged or anywhere in between, your relationships continue, and they can continue in these overwhelmingly beautiful ways.
Mm,
So if we just cut it off and say, well, I'll see them when I get there, we are cutting ourselves off from that relationship.
mm. It was interesting for me. My father had passed too, both my parents have as well. And I remember my father and I were very close. And I remember hearing around that time, was like 3 decades ago, that there was like these 7 stages that souls go through after they die. And I felt that if I was to talk to him and tune into him and continue our relationship, which I felt was very strong even after he passed, that I would hold him back. And so that created this kind of block. It, I would a little bit be in touch with him, or I'd feel and experience his messages and presence, and I'd go back and forth and not know what to do. I think we get caught up in wanting to do the right thing, for our loved ones that are here and also those that have passed on. So, how do we work through all of that?
Well, from what Spirit has shown me, time, every single passing is different.
Mm,
And I don't know about, people will say, well, they're in the healing chamber, so I can't connect with them right now. Or
mm,
many different things have been said. It's never been my experience
mm-hmm.
because they are now back in multidimensionality, so they can be many places at once.
Ah, okay.
And they will say, you are never bothering me, ever.
Mm,
It's always because what is the relationship based in is love. So how could you be bothering them when it's just
right.
all about love?
Mm, mm-hmm.
So some of those contexts, some of those things, I think, um, are still based in fear,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? If I'm going to be bothering them and they're off doing their thing, um, but we just have no concept of how many things they can be doing at once.
Right.
Because time is a human concept, and our brain
Yes.
cannot figure out this timeless multidimensionary stuff. So we just have to know that when we call on them, they're there for us
Mm-hmm.
no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. And they want to stay connected, and they want to support us, and they want to bring us messages and bring us love. And it's just up to us to say, okay, I'm okay with it, and let's
Yeah.
chat.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you brought up that point about the multidimensionality and the time and space, just being a human 3D
Right.
level existence. Because I remember was very in touch with the exact moment my dad actually reincarnated. And
Mm,
it felt like I was losing him all over again,
right.
and then I didn't know how to continue there, but then I realized that I could. It was
Hmm.
different. It was different.
Right.
However, it was still possible.
Right.
And so I know now that no matter what, there's just not those constraints and those restrictions and how it
Right.
takes shape. And I think it was really important what you mentioned about working on ourselves, being open to
Mhm.
receive, accepting what is, and being expanding our light so that we can receive theirs as well and
Mhm.
connect in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
so,
loved that James
yeah.
Van Prague said, one time I was listening to him and he said, there's nothing in this physical body that's more than like the big toe of your existence. The rest of your existence is other lives and multidimensionality and other planets and like all over the place. We just don't have any concept of that. So even
Yeah,
if they have reincarnated, we feel that they are back in a human life or more than one lives, we can still connect with them
absolutely. And
because
there's
we're
a real
connecting into their essence,
into
right?
their essence. I love that. And
Hmm.
there's a real opportunity here then to heal generational wounds as well. You said you and your father were estranged for 30 years and
Hmm.
you did some inner work. And when we do that inner work, we're healing along the whole ancestral line, right? Like we're correcting some of that, the DNA patterning. So
And
how do you work with people
forwards,
in
forwards
forwards
as well.
and
Backwards,
forwards as well?
yeah.
So tell us about that, healing those generational wounds forwards and backwards.
Yeah, so when they're coming through and they're the generational patterns, and perhaps, I mean, there's so much um, collective grief coming up right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many of our ancestors who dealt with so much grief and trauma, and they just didn't have the capacity or the ability to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it will come through in another generation where someone will be okay in this lifetime. I can clear this. I can work with this, and then so then when we clear it for our ancestry, then our children don't carry it because we've stopped the pattern. So we're clearing both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. And so, what else can you tell us then about the angels and the spirits, and what's the difference? Some may just not know. They may just be starting to
Right.
understand this other world. Yeah.
Uh, so I always say if you're just starting out, sometimes we can get caught in, is this an angel? Is this a guide? Is this my loved one? And we
Mm-hmm.
can get in our heads a little bit about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I will just say, call them my team in spirit. You
Oh,
don't need to know what they are. And then
yeah.
as you get further on in your practice, building those muscles of connection, you will start to notice different frequencies or different vibrations. Maybe if you're more clairvoyant, you'll start to see different colors or you'll have different sensations on your body and you'll start to feel what your people feel like versus what an angel feels like or a guide. But it's
Yeah.
not important. Like if we're being supported by our team in spirit, if we can think of ourselves as a CEO of this lifetime and we've got a boardroom full of helpers, is it important to know their exact identities or is it just important to tune in and feel the messages and feel the support?
Yes. Yes. And I guess some people are concerned with a certain level of discernment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to protect themselves and sometimes overprotected that they create walls and a block to it
Right.
all. Because again, that's coming from that fear place. But there is a level of discernment that we want to use because there's a lot of energies that we
Mm-hmm.
can tap into. So how do you share with people good practices of discernment?
So I think the most important thing is to just ensure that you're in your own energy. And one
Mm,
of my very first teachers, Sonia Choquette, taught this room to breathe. And she would just say, take your energy and push it out in front of you and behind you, left, right, above, below. And she says this, and everything else, everyone else, all the opinions, everything, just get out of the pool. This
mm.
is my energy. And I don't know if you've heard her say that, but I just love that because then you just feel like, okay, this is my energy. And then it gives you this porous kind of boundary where you
Mhm.
can just only love in. I'm only
Mm,
connecting to things of the highest vibration and love. And it's when you feel your own energy, then you can discern what it is you're connecting with. And that
yes.
doesn't mean there isn't times where I've connected into something and gone, oh, no, angels, no, I don't want that. Right? I mean, that can happen.
Mhm.
But most of the time, when you've got set that intention, I'm connecting into the highest vibration of love. That's really all you need.
Mm. I love that. And we become soul led and self led
Right.
in that way, which
Yes.
is super important right now as we get more
Right.
and deeper into the Aquarian age and want to set those deeper roots within ourselves and have those energetic boundaries. many
Right.
more of us have been coming through as more highly sensitive and,
Mhm.
very much aware of the collective energy and grief, and what I call people into for collective transformation can
Mhm.
really channel that into collective transformation. And so I just want to touch on, because you mentioned it earlier too, about the collective grief. How do we know when it is, other people's energy and grief or our own? Is that just getting to know ourselves really
Yeah, so
well, or are there other ways too?
I just have the one point that comes in before, as you're saying that there's
Mm,
more of us. AI has shown us that
mm.
intelligence is easily replicated,
Ah, okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've spent so many years focused on the mind and intelligence, and that's
Hmm.
the easiest intelligence to replicate. So
Yeah.
now, who are coming forward as the leaders are the intuitives, the
Mm.
ones, they are empaths, the sensitives, the
Yes.
ultraverts that they're calling us now, are
Mm.
leading with our hearts, right? So I just wanted to mention that. And then your question was, if you do that room to breathe, then you're discerning what is my energy and what is not my
Okay.
energy.
Yeah.
Because you can really feel, oh, this is what my energy feels like. And then you can say, what is here? What is mine?
Hmm.
Right? What's coming
Hmm.
up for me? And then you can feel into something else and, oh, that's not mine. Because there's a lot going on right now, as you
Yeah.
said, in the collective. It's pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
And so the more that we can be clear in our own energy, then we can discern what is ours.
Okay. Perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah. Coming back home to ourselves, returning to our center, into our soul sanctuary. I love
Right.
that. I love the word sanctuary, and
Right.
going for refuge in that place and receiving our guidance from that place, being able to truly connect in that place
Yeah.
and feel whole, not bypassing, right, the
Right.
chaos and what's going on and the realities that
Hmm.
we may be confronted with and presented with, and to learn from that as well, but to learn from it in a more solid place, but also a more fluid
Right.
space, right?
Right.
Where
Like,
we don't
yes.
become so overly structured, or,
Right.
again, in that performance place, we're more into the peace and presence more than that performance and productivity and doing and intellectualizing. As you say, there's a real call to sacred leadership right now, to
Hmm.
heart-led, heart-centered leaders who are light leaders, who are here to show the way. And that's what lighting the path is all about. The sacred leaders compass goes into that as well, and I always offer that to our audience in the video description here. What are some of your offerings that you have available for people, Laurie?
So every Thursday morning, I'm in Mountain Time at 9 a.m. I offer a meditation, a group meditation, and it's just absolutely based on whoever's coming. I tune in and we do a healing meditation on whatever's coming through. And I do offer a 2-week free trial for that for people who are interested. And there's always replays. And then in my work, I have because I believe everybody's individual in how they go into their soul sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
I do one-on-ones, and I have a longer one-on-one program called Tune into Your Soul Essence. That's a 12-week program, and that's where we really go within and build your soul sanctuary and find how your energy works and why you're here and how you're going to do it. Because I don't believe that can be taught in a group. Yeah. And then I
Yeah.
offer just regular one-on-one sessions for people who are just looking for some connection or some healing.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I love this. And I love your dedication and devotion to what you're most about, and what has been part of your lineage for some time and will continue to be. And also that you're extending these offerings to everyone,
Mhm.
everyone who's feeling called into it, who's curious. And we're going to have links for your website, for your social. I know you're on Instagram quite a bit. And so we'll have the link for that and for this 2-week trial, which is a beautiful way to just get started and to feel into the energy and feel what that's like, and to know whether this is right for you at this time, or to come back and step into it at a later date. Because this video is always going to be there. You can save the link. We're going to have that in the description below. How do you most like people to connect with you, Laurie?
I'm as you said, I'm on Instagram quite a bit. I try to limit myself to kind of one social media.
Beautiful. That's great.
um, and I do occasional things on YouTube, but mostly on Instagram is where most of my content is, and you can all my links and everything are on there as well.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. That's perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure we have that in there. And I wonder, while we have you here with us, is there anything else that you'd like to share, whether it's words of wisdom, teachings, a practice, a meditation, anything that's coming up
Mm.
for you that you'd like to share?
So I'd love to share something that my guides brought through a year ago, and it's a quick technique to tune into one of your people.
Okay.
So you're welcome to do it with me, or you can just listen along. So it just involves bringing someone that has passed into focus, whether you see them clearly or just you feel them, just kind of bringing them into your imagination, what they look like, the color of their hair, what they're wearing, like really bringing them in. So if everyone has an image of someone, and then you just take that image and you can just let it drop down into your heart. We call this smile me into your heart. And just feel their energy now in your heart. And then feel their energetic hug, however they come in through for you. Just feel them around you. You may get a visual or a sound. Just feel them. Just notice. And it truly is that easy.
Hmm.
And once we can connect and we just feel a little glimpse of who they are or what they are trying, or a message or a sign or a feeling on our bodies, then we go, oh, this really isn't that hard. I just need to get out of my head and connect to them. It can be seriously that easy.
Wow. Yeah, we do tend to overcomplicate things, don't we? And think, or,
Hmm.
try to control the outcome or expect that it's going to happen in a certain way. And it's actually very subtle and very
Right.
close and soft. And thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah.
technique.
They'll just
Beautiful.
smile them into your heart, feel their
Mm,
energetic hug. That's it.
smile me into my heart. I love
Mhm.
that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you. Thank you
You're
so
so
much,
welcome.
Laurie. And thank you to each and every one of you that have been tuning into Awaken and Ascend. I wonder what this woke up inside of you. Have you tried connecting with your loved ones in the past? Have been wanting to? What has your experience been like? We'd love to see that in the comments. If you have any questions, we'll have contact information for both Laurie and myself in the video description here. And I'm just so happy that we got to spend this time together, Laurie, and with everyone that's been tuning in.
Thank you so much. So grateful for this time.
I am too. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Until next time.